as I was driving in, I was making a personal commitment to myself. Like, man, you got to spend, just a little more time in silence. Like, what clearly is the next level for you and your family? Like, what possibilities exist that I haven't tapped into simply because I haven't been quiet enough to allow the thought to permeate my mind? And what I mean by quiet is blocking out what is currently here. Because for some of us, it's the goodness around us that's blocking out the potential greatness that we can be. Like, I don't struggle with my bills, I'm good. He ain't talking to me. And so that goodness is often the enemy of our greatness. What is that next level? See, because what happens is, in order for us to go to the next level, we have to actually be uncomfortable with the good. And some of us who are living good lives aren't willing to do that. I'm just going, this is good. I mean, this is good. Why would I? Come on, Linnell. Why are you messing with me? Go back to the folks who are struggling, right? Like, this is good. It's like, yeah, it's good. But have you really, really tapped into your potential? Like, is the goodness that you've created honoring like what God has for your life in terms of greatness? Maybe part of the goodness is that you feel like you did that. And now it's time to actually create something where he did that.
Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. It's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. Best right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live your dream. Your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals.
Title of today's show is The Power of Possibility, and the ability to see the world through the lens of possibility and the impact that will have on you. And so that's part of what I want to talk about possibility in particular. And the way that I want to kick this off is with Slay Your Goals members. There's a passage that I read to them every year, like clock. It's always a part of the curriculum. And I want to read, I don't think I've ever read it on the air. It's been something that's been specific to Slay Your Goals members. And I'm going to read it today if I can find it here. I think it's in webinar 1. If I can find it here, I'm going to read it today. Because as I was driving in, I was thinking about today's show. And one of the things that I cover with Slay Your Goals members, like the very first, outside of, we go through membership training, that's like the first call, but the very first teaching call is called Solidifying Your Success, and what it takes to solidify your goal-setting success. And what I talk about is this idea of vision, how vision equals discipline. And then I read this piece on vision that I think is, just absolutely phenomenal. And I want to start with that today for anyone who's listening, so you understand what I mean by possibility. Like when I say the word possibility. Before I changed the name of the Discovering Living Life's Purpose course to that, it was called Purpose, Power, Possibility. And the reason why I called it purpose, power, possibility is because I believe when a person comes into clarity around the reason they exist, like this is the reason I'm actually on the planet, and then they step into a new level of power. And by the way, that's a distinctly different action, like stepping into power, because unfortunately, many of us live well beneath our power. Many of us. And so you have to step into your power, which is something that we work with the alumni of the course with as well. When they go through the course, they distinguish their spiritual substance and power. So you have to know your power. And then when you combine clarity of purpose, another way to think about this is clarity of identity. I know who I be in the world. With power, it creates all types of new possibilities. Like all of a sudden, there are things that you can see. There are possibilities that begin to materialize that did not exist before. I believe the thing that most of us are dealing with is doubt and limiting belief, which is directly in opposition to possibility. And so when possibility is created, there is always going to be an equal force that is going to resist the possibility. And that force is doubt, and that force is limitation of belief. And if there's anything I can do today, my mission is to do everything I can to break that up and to really ensure that that seed of possibility germinates and grows. Speaking of a seed, I think that's a great place to start. Spring is coming. I mean, we're in the middle of winter. The ground is hard. And it'd be very difficult to get a seed into the ground right now. But when that time comes, like when it comes time to actually drop a seed, I want you to think about something. And if seed represents possibility, which it does in the actually the purpose is a seed in the possibility course, but just rock with me for this moment. If a seed represents possibility, I want you to think about, in connection to this, possibility in your life. And when you plant a seed, most of us understand how this works. If in the spring I decide that I want a particular flower, let's say well, tulips have bulbs. I'm trying to think of a flower that has a seed. It really doesn't matter. You guys get the point. But I want to plant a particular flower. And what I would do is I have to take certain actions. Like at a minimum, I have to plant the seed and I have to water the seed, right? So I have to take action. When you think about faith, or what I believe the definition of faith is deep and strong belief plus purposeful action. So let's go back to the seed. I believe the seed will grow, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't even put it in the ground. And I want you all to frame this up as you think about the possibility in your life. Because when you see possibility or the idea that possibility can exist in your life, it requires something of you. And what it requires first is that you believe enough where you take action to actually put it in the ground. Say, oh, this is something I should take care of. This is something that I'm going to watch grow. That's first. After you put it in the ground, notice that you don't go dig it up every day. Is it happening? Like there is a belief that because I've taken the proper action, as long as I continue to take actions that are aligned with that, the seed will grow. Possibility works in the very same way. Like any possibility that you see that is potentially about to come into your life or that can be brought into your life works in the exact same way. The difference is typically the seed is a thought. And that thought is the possibility. And you have to begin to ask yourself, do I believe in the potential of this thought, which is my possibility, enough for me to actually plant it in the ground and then take the time to water it? And what I'm afraid of is that for many of us, we don't believe, so we don't water. And then we'll plant the seed, but we won't water it. And then we'll come back and say, see, I was right. There was nothing there because nothing happened. It's like, but you didn't water it. Like the seed requires some level of water. What is your water? Action. Like taking action, going out every day and put it. And by the way, having a garden, someone who, in the spring, we have like that it's you got to be intentional. Wake up saying, oh, let me water the plants before I go to the office. Come back from the office. Let me water the plants before I go to bed, right? It takes that level of intentionality. It's the same thing with any possibility in your life. You should be thinking about it when you wake up and taking any action to water it. And then you should be thinking about it before you go to bed and taking any action that you need to water it. Many people today live their entire lives on the basis of seeing is believing. Seeing is believing. That is to say, the only images they get emotionally involved with are the ones that they can discern with their physical senses. The only images they get emotionally involved. And if you guys have been listening to me for years, one of the things I talk about is the power of emotion. If you came to the master class, if you're part of Slayer Goals, I talk about the power of setting emotive goals. All right. So that is to say, the only image they get emotionally involved with are the ones they can discern with their physical senses. Now, let me break this down. By the way, there's a whole lot more to read. I'm just going to take my time with this. And so for Slayer Goals members, this is probably the most explanation you've ever received around this because I got time. All right. What I believe happens for most of us is that our physical world is our manifestation. Like we're creating it as we go. And the reason it perpetuates itself, the reason why things are getting better is because every time something happens in your physical realm, you allow it to overwhelm your senses. You get emotionally involved with it. And then you broadcast more of the same. What do I mean? By your very words. See, this always happens to me. Or another expression would be like, if it's not one thing, it's another, right? And so you're emotionally responding to everything that's happening around you. And by the way, it don't even have to be big. It could be somebody cutting you off. And you get emotional. You make all types of like that, and they actually gain power over you and take that emotional currency we talked about last year after the election. They take your emotional currency and they basically manipulate you into creating more of the same. That's why you always get cut off. That's why you're almost, always slamming on your brakes, almost in an accident, because you're actually saying, give me more of this. And because you're so caught up in the physical realm, in the physical senses of how things are happening to you, you're responding, right? You're reacting versus being intentional then it perpetuates itself. Gets worse and worse and worse. Here's a very good example of what I mean. Some folks are setting themselves up to emotionally relive Trump's presidency from the last 4 years, the previous one. Like they're going to have the same emotional experiences because they told themselves they will have the same emotional experiences. And because we have so much power that you're actually recreating your possibility as what you went through the last time. And so every time you say, here we go again, like you're responding, this is to say, the only images you get emotionally involved with are the ones that you can discern with your physical senses. Now listen to me. I promise I'm trying to help, by the way. I promise you. Now listen to me. It goes on to say, but the individuals of real vision, of real possibility, down through the ages, have always known the overriding principle is what you see. And when I say what you see, I'm not talking about the physical realm. I'm talking about what you see in your mind. What you see is what you get. If I see myself in any way, in any capacity, that's what I get. If you never truly understood the power of self-love, I hope it just dropped into your spirit just now. Why it's so important and why it's so powerful. Because how you see yourself is what you will get in the physical reality. How you see yourself is what you will get in the physical reality. One of the reasons purpose is so incredibly important is because it transforms how you see yourself. Your purpose becomes your identity. And when your purpose becomes your identity, not what you don't have, not how you grew up, not your upbringing, not your trauma. Like when your purpose becomes your identity, then you begin to see yourself through a different lens. Purpose actually begins to transform the lens that you see yourself with. So then we go into paragraph number 3. The author says, expressed somewhat differently. What this means is that the images in people's minds actually precede the concrete images which pervade our material world. The images in your mind actually precede the concrete images that pervade our mental world. And there's lots of proof of that. There's lots of proof of that. All you have to do is peek out your window and look up and down the block, and you'll see all these images that at one point lived in a person's mind that is now pervading the material world. From the tires on a car, from the car itself, to the sidewalks that run up and down the block, to the lawns, to the actual homes around you. That lived in someone's mind before it was built. Someone said, you know what would be nice is to create a two flat that has 3 bedrooms on both levels that 2 families can live in. And then they drew it on paper. They put it in mind first, and then they drew it on paper. And then they believed in it so much they planted the seed that they were able to have it built. And here you are living in it, living in someone's possibility, someone's potential, while you doubt your own. This is why I think this is so important. There's a shift happening. And as long as I've been on the radio, I don't know that I felt this, like the urgency I feel now for people to understand how to begin to create in their material world. It's happening all around us. It's happening all the news about DeepSeek and AI, and like someone saw that before they did it. They're like, it didn't take that much money. I can do it for less. They had to see it before they did it. So what this means is the images in your mind actually precede the concrete images which pervade your material world. Everything that you're looking at in your bedroom, in your kitchen, wherever you are, wherever you're listening, as you drive, everything that you see, at least that you have, whether it's the condition of your car, whether it's clean, whether it's dirty, whether there's chips on the seat, like you created that. There is a mental picture in your mind of how it should look and work before it's looking and working the way it works right now. So the author goes on to say, therefore, you should be aware of the fact that the fascinating physical world we see before us, with all of its conveniences for making our lives more comfortable, has been largely built by image makers. I have a question for you. Are you an image maker? Are you a creator? Are you creating in your life in a way where you can actually see yourself as an image maker? Or are you consuming all the images that other people make? Where do you fall? So you should be aware of the fact that the fascinating physical world we see before us, with all of its conveniences for making our lives more comfortable, has been largely built by image makers. Men and women of vision who knew what they could do. They understood who they were. They understood their purpose. They understood their creative capacity. And not only did they know what they could do, they expected everything else to fall in place for it to happen, regardless of what their critics might say to the contrary, regardless of what people have to say. If you do that, if you do this, like they expected everything to fall into place. It'll happen. It'll go. It'll work. I'm going to go back to the seed in the garden. The reason we get up in the morning and water it is because there is an expectation that because I'm watering it, it will grow. It will fall into place. It will do what it's supposed to do. All I got to do is I put it in the ground 6 inches. I put the right topsoil on it. I water it. I expect to see a shrub. And guess what happens? Because I expect it, it shows up. It's no different than how goals work. This is we complicate it, but it's no different. The Creator put repeatable processes in place. Like if you follow the process, it'll work for you. Remember, this is what the author says, you will only receive what you truly expect, not what you wish for. I've said it before. That's why I can talk to anybody and they can say, I want to be a multimillionaire, but very few are. Because most folks wish for it, but they don't truly expect it. Expectation does something. Expectation causes you to prepare. Expectation pushes you into action. If you expected to be a multimillionaire by the end of the year, you would begin moving differently. You might even say, I need to know who my real friends are. You start moving differently with them. I can't rock with you like that. I got to put distance between us now because when my money shows up, I can't have you leeching on me. You already get me for $20 a week. I can't have you get me for 20,000. You follow? Like you would begin like when you believe something is going to happen, when you truly expect it, you begin behaving yourself differently. Man, I thought that was your boy. Yeah, it hurt, but I had to put distance between us because you expect something in return. There's an expectation you have that causes you to begin behaving differently. This is how possibility works. Possibility should cause you to behave differently. When I began to seriously think about the possibilities of marriage, and I say, okay, I expect to find the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, I began making preparation for her before I met her. I began preparing because I truly expected that the Creator would place her in my life. I truly expected it. So I had to make room. I began behaving myself in a way that aligned with the expectation, with the possibility of a spouse. There are folks out here who are single and they're trying to figure out why. And I'm telling you, the reason why is partly because you don't truly expect it. Because if you truly expected it, you begin behaving yourself differently. For the young man out there, if you truly expected it, you'd be saving your money. You'd be put into I'm going to have a family one day. And so because I'm going to have a family one day, this goes to the side for them. I truly expect to have children. I truly expect to have a spouse. And so you're basically aligning yourself to the possibility through your actions because I expect it. This is the way possibility works. I'm going to read it again all at once without all the explanation so you can really take it in before we go to the break. Many people today live their entire lives on the basis of seeing is believing. That is to say, the only images they get emotionally involved with are the ones they can discern with their physical senses. But the individuals of real vision, down through the ages, have always known the overriding principle is what you see is what you get. Expressed somewhat differently, what this means is that the images in people's minds actually precede the concrete images which pervade our material world. Therefore, you should be aware of the fact that the fascinating physical world we see before us, with all of its conveniences for making our lives more comfortable, has been built largely by image makers, men and women of vision who knew what they could do and expected everything else to fall into place, regardless of what their critics might say to the contrary. Remember, you will only receive what you truly expect, not what you wish for. You will only receive what you truly expect, not what you wish for. True possibility requires a particular type of mindset. True possibility requires a particular type of mindset. I've been talking a lot about mindset over the past few weeks because I also believe that part of the reason many of us are struggling, many of us are having issues, is because We don't have the proper mindset. When I opened the masterclass, one of the questions I posed at the beginning of the masterclass was, what's killing your clarity? What's killing your clarity? And the answer to that question was, it's because many of us don't have the proper mindset. Over the break, just having a conversation with the Facebook audience, there was one comment I saw that I think is worth sharing on the air. It's from one of the listeners on Facebook. And what they were sharing is that at one point they were struggling with depression, and that when they chose a new lens, like a lens of possibility, and they began to shift to gratitude. And like one of the examples they shared was looking out the window, maybe the weather's not good, and instead of focusing on the weather, being grateful for the window that they had where they could see out into their neighborhood. Like just really shifting the lens, that upon doing that, the depression went away. And I had to call that one out, because that is the power. That is the power of perspective, like the literal power of perspective that sometimes I think we do, unfortunately, overlook. When we think about possibility, one of the things that comes to mind is the old school Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And this month, we'll be dropping some stories about entrepreneurs from Black history. And so this year, the team and I, we chose to go after entrepreneurs. And one of the reasons I wanted to focus on African-American entrepreneurs from history, in particular the 19th century, is because in today's environment, like one of the things we hear is the death of DEI, right? And as an African-American, if you're not careful, you'll begin to make that mean something about your possibility, right? You'll begin to say, well, if that happened, then what does that mean for me, right? And I want to be very clear that you set the tone for your life. No one else sets the tone. I don't care who they are. You set the tone for your life. And the reason we focused on these individuals from Black history is because there was no DEI when they were doing their work. There were no DEI contracts. There was nobody who was making sure that they got an equitable handout when they experienced their success. But it was a clarity of vision and an expectation that when I plant the seed, it will grow, that created the lives that they end up creating and the impact they end up having. We're going to talk about the father of Harlem. You know, Harlem used to be, well, it's going back, but it used to be, before the Renaissance, a white neighborhood. Like there was a brother who saw possibility in that. And because of what he saw, his vision pervaded the material world. We're going to be sharing all these reels on LinkedIn, Instagram. If you don't follow me on social, you definitely want to follow me on social for this Black history lesson, because we're starting the month with this idea of the power of possibility. And then we're going to be sharing examples in Black history from the 19th century. And when I say the 19th century, you're talking the 1800s, where folk that look like you, despite segregation, despite like true systemic racism, like, I mean, on a whole different level, they were able to carve out something that even today we have to step back and recognize and say, wow, that's amazing. And this is why I get so fired up about this victim mentality. It's something's happening to me. No, you get to create your reality. You get to create what happens around you. You get to create what's next. That is not dictated by a policy. is dictated by your vision. And if your vision is clear enough, it's powerful enough, there's no policy that can touch it. And these African Americans from Black history that we're going to be talking about prove my point. I was like, I want to find folks where it was just unlikely. Like it wasn't supposed to happen. All the rules were set against them. We're going to be talking about a woman called Mary Ellen Pleasant. Like a woman in the 1800s that became a multi-millionaire. A woman, a Black woman, right? Like, oh, it's not possible for me, Linnell. You don't understand my situation. Nah, it's your belief. It's your belief. It's the possibility that you're nursing. That's it. You're not nursing the right possibilities. You're nursing all the possibilities of what could go wrong, and then you watch them happen. I want you to think right now about something that took place in your life that you didn't believe was possible, but for whatever reason, you shifted your emotional energy around it. Like you had to bring it to fruition. See, one of the things about us is when it comes down to survival, like if I absolutely have to survive, like I gotta squeeze through this little small sliver of possibility in order for me to survive, in order for me to feed my children, in order for us to live. Like we do that. But part of the reason we do it is because we're like most of how we're built is for survival. But if you can build something for survival from possibility, why can't you do it in any other place? Same mechanisms. Maybe it's because we don't have the urgency. Here's what happens. Like, if you want to understand the science of possibility, here's what happens. And I want to go to one other comment that I saw here on Facebook. But here's what happens. I'm going to go to the comment first because one of the listeners, they shared a comment that I want to make sure we really get this. Because this goes into the science I'm about to share. So they were saying, they said they were following what I was saying. They're like, so we can base our expectations on the unseen possibility. And then they came back and they said, so when I survey what's present, it points directly to what I've been expecting. Like, yeah, like what is currently present in your life is what you expected. And if you don't expect more won't show up. If you do expect more will show up. If you expect less, because one of the things that happens is when we get to a certain point in our lives where things are clicking. I mean, you're blessed. Like, man, I'm paying my bills. This is wonderful. Then what happens is impending doom sets in. Oh, every time you get blessed like this, something bad happens. And if you let that be the seed, guess what will happen? If you allow that to be the seed that you water, that you sit up and obsess about and think about, guess what will happen? And this is one of the reasons goals are so powerful. I don't have the space and time to be concerned about what I might lose because I'm focusing on the next level of gain. Does that make sense? Like, here is what I can gain in my health and well-being. I'm not focused on, man, see, you finally in shape. Everything's okay. What if you fall and hurt yourself? I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, okay, what else? Now, what's next? What's the next goal? What's the next possibility? And if it's not me, then how can I take what I've learned and give it to other people through purpose? That's where the focus is. Oh, see, you and your wife, y'all cool. Everything's fine. You know, y'all loving on each other. So when is the next big fight gonna happen? Right? If that's what I expect, then that's what will happen. But if I'm like, how do I build on this? How do I take us to the next level? How do we grow? Then that becomes the expectation. That is what I realize. I can go through every facet, even my finances. If you finally got some money in your pocket, now you're like, nah, man, every time I get some money, here comes a big bill. Here comes something that's unexpected. If you truly expect that, that's what will show up. But if you say, man, I got this money, now it's time to plant the money like a seed and let it grow, and I expect that it will grow. I expect that it will bless me. I expect that it will bless my family. Then that's what will happen. But this is the reason why goals are so important. Now, here we are, February 2nd, and 75% of people have let their goals go. So then they let their goals go, they let their resolutions go, and you turn on the television or you scroll through your phone and you see all these tragedies. And what happens is life begins to seem like it's reflecting tragedy and darkness. And what comes into your space is the expectation of tragedy and darkness. And let me be clear, tragedy happens to us all. But the beauty of purpose is that my focus is on the possibilities of what I'm supposed to be creating, not the tragedies. And because my lens is different, what ends up germinating, what ends up being created in my life is different from what's happening around me. So let me go where I wanted to go in terms of the science, because there's also a science to this. I promise y'all I don't be getting on the air just making stuff up. So everybody has in their brain what is called a reticular activating system, referred to as RAS, R-A-S, a reticular activating system. And this part of the brain filters out information based on what we believe is possible. This is what Napoleon Hill called autosuggestion in his book, Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill said, if you have a definite purpose and you plant it in your mind as a seed of possibility, then something about the mind, something about the subconscious mind will begin to actually find the solutions for how you can create said possibility. I believe that when Napoleon Hill wrote those words, he may not have known about the reticular activating system. He just knew that something happens when you get clear. When I say this is what is possible in my life, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm headed. When I say that, then all of a sudden I begin to see the solutions and the seeds for how to make that happen. Then there's science behind it that says, yeah, 100%. The brain will filter information based on what you tell the brain is possible. If you believe something is impossible, what happens is your brain stops looking for solutions. So every time someone tells themselves, I'll never be that, the brain says, oh, well, no reason to work on that. No reason to be working on your behalf while you're sleeping to create that. No reason to program the subconscious mind for you to become that. Here's the best example I can give you. If this has happened to me so many times, and I'm sure it's happened to many people, you decide to buy a certain car. You see it not only as a possibility, but it is now an expectation. By the way, for the JQLR fleet, we had some cars going back. And I was like, I don't want them to go back right now. So we extended them. And part of the reason we did that is because we know the market ain't right. And the reason the market's not right is because everybody's getting their income tax checks back. And then when they get the income tax check, what people do is they go buy new cars. Not everybody, but a whole lot of folks, right? And so what that does is it inflates the price of cars. And they want to take it back cheap and sell it high, so they ain't even willing to. It's like, no, I ain't time to get any cars back. We ain't doing it. We ain't giving them back. We ain't buying them. But I say that because when we go through this car buying process, say, we be very clear. So my income my income tax check gonna be $5,000. I'm gonna put the $5,000 down on a car. I'm gonna get a Honda Accord. It's gonna be blue. All of a sudden, blue Honda Accords. Right? They were there. They always been there. You just weren't thinking about it. And the beauty of what God did for us is he gave us the conscious mind, the brain, with these abilities to support us in our creative efforts. So not only did he give us a spirit, he designed us to hold the spirit in a way that we could go create. Isn't that wonderful? My question is, are you using it? Are you using it to honor him, to glorify him, to bring new possibilities into the earth? See, one of the reasons I believe he gave us that capacity is so then we could say, look at what God did for me. Look at what, I can't take credit for anything that I'm up to. I believe one of the reasons he made it difficult for me to speak and gave me that kind of speaking anxiety in meetings and things like that. So I was very clear that it wasn't me that created any of this. It's one of the reasons, like, when I think about being a radio host, I chuckle because it's like, man, talk about possibility. I saw it in my mind's eye, but it wasn't feasible when I saw it. It didn't, and I want you all to really hear this, because there's some of you, when you look at your present circumstance, you're so obsessed with what's going on for you presently, it's difficult for you to get mentally connected to the possibility. The fact that I'm on the radio is a miraculous possibility. The fact that I can speak to you the way that I'm speaking to you is that is proof that this works. I think a lot of times, if you didn't know me back then, it's kind of like, well, this guy was always this way. It's like, no, absolutely not. This took development. It took work. It took building possibility after possibility after possibility. What is the thing that you've been filtering out in your life? Like every time it comes into your mind, you push it away because you don't believe it's possible for you. That's not possible for me. When I think about some of the stories, Byron Allen, stand-up comedian, now today owns multiple networks, multi-billionaire. There was a point, I'm sure, where the idea of experiencing business success like this came into his mind, and he questioned, can I do that? But then he came to a conclusion. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And look at where he is now. Every limitation we believe is rooted in a story about ourselves that we've accepted as truth. And because we've accepted that story as truth, that is what we repeatedly put out. More of that. But what if it weren't true? What if there's a possibility that you could be really good with money? What if you accepted the possibility that after 2025, you would never struggle again financially? What if you accepted that possibility? Because when you accept the possibility, the solutions start to come to you. I never have to struggle financially. And what happens is folks are like, I can't even wrap my mind around it. And part of the reason you can't wrap your mind around it is because you're too involved in your current physical world. As I was driving in, I was making a personal commitment to myself. Man, you got to spend, just a little more time in silence. What clearly is the next level for you and your family? Like, what possibilities exist that I haven't tapped into simply because I haven't been quiet enough to allow the thought to permeate my mind? And what I mean by quiet is blocking out what is currently here. Because for some of us, it's the goodness around us that's blocking out the potential greatness that we can be. Like, I don't struggle with my bills, I'm good. He ain't talking to me. My health is good. I got my recent doctor report. My marriage is good. My finances are good. Work is good. My spiritual life is good. And so that goodness is often the enemy of our greatness. What is that next level? See, because what happens is, in order for us to go to the next level, we have to actually be uncomfortable with the good. And some of us who are living good lives aren't willing to do that. I'm just going, this is good. I mean, this is good. Why would I? Come on, Linnell. Why are you messing with me? Go back to the folks who are struggling, right? Like, this is good. It's like, yeah, it's good. But have you really, really tapped into your potential? Like, is the goodness that you've created honoring like what God has for your life in terms of greatness? Maybe part of the goodness is that you feel like you did that. And now it's time to actually create something where he did that. Like, is that where you are? Every limitation that we believe we have is rooted in some story that we've accepted as truth. One of the biggest limitations I hear people talk about is time. It's the limitation that I continue to battle with. I think anybody will continue to battle with. I don't have enough time. Here's a way to reframe it. And this is like where possibility comes in. What if instead of saying I don't have enough time, you reframed it into how can I make better use of the time I have? My wife and I were commenting about how we use our time on Saturday morning. It's like, wow, we got a lot done. It's like, how can we make better use of our time? There are folks, I was listening to on YouTube, one guy who was in an accident and he was paralyzed. And the doctors came in and they were telling him how, yeah, you won't be able to use your legs anymore. And he was like, nah, I'm going to walk. And here's what happens, especially with folks who are educated. They'll say, sir, like they'll feel sorry for you. Sir, no, you don't understand. We've done the x-rays. He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to walk again. And here's what will happen when you have possibility. People will walk out feeling sorry for you. Oh man, he's in denial. The poor guy wants to walk so bad, right? They'll feel bad for you. There are possibilities that you're nursing in your life that somebody is like, oh, she doesn't see that she can't do that. And what they're doing is projecting their beliefs onto you. This man says, no, I'll walk again. And he would sit up in his hospital bed, close his eyes, and just emotionally experience himself walking, running, moving. 30 days later, they do another x-ray. The doctors are like, there's something going on. This is a miracle. Like, we can't figure out, but it looks like your spine is regenerating in some capacity. Like and he's like, because I'm going to walk again. Because I'm going to walk again. Like, we have more power. And by the way, like, we've all heard stories like this. This is like when you hear the story, you're like, yeah, I've heard stories of people who've done things. And, you know, there's another story I saw of a woman who laughed her cancer away. She was like, I know what caused this. My sadness, my depression, it has now permeated my body. And so now in order for me to get rid of my cancer, I don't need chemo, I need laughter. And so she watched comedies, and that was her therapy. Then, you know, went back, and they're like, oh, where'd the cancer go? More than anything, it was the expectation. Laughter might not work for you. Whatever it is, if you expect it, that is what will happen. It was the expectation. I expect that when I spend my days laughing, there will be no more cancer. When you create what's possible, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in your life. One of the reasons I get so excited about topics like this, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about possibility is because of the stories of my own life. I just got lessons to teach my son back from the editor, and I'm going over the changes they made. We've been going back and forth, and I think we're finally there. And one of the stories I tell in the book is how I became a corporate executive. Like based on the rules. This is one of the reasons why, you know, folks are like, how you feel about Trump being in office? How do you feel about? I'm like, man, it doesn't matter to me. Like, my life has been a story of breaking policies and rules to go to the next level. But I break down the story of how I'm a manager and I'm talking to my boss about becoming a director. This is just a director, not even me making vice president and officer in a Fortune 500 company. And at the time, I didn't have my degree, and you know, it's you can't do it. And I'm like, and I followed these exact principles of possibility, And I tell the story in the book. I can't remember what chapter, but in the book, I tell the story of how I go in and I share, hey, it's demoralizing for me to continue to educate new bosses, new directors who come in. And, you know, I would like to become a director at this company. And, you know, she gives me this, you know, kind of like that concerned look, that look like, oh, well, Linnell, you know, directors in this company, y'all have bachelor's degrees. Okay. Well, you know, based on my travel schedule, based on the workload I have, I can't just go back to school right now without it impacting my work. How do we get around that? She just kind of looked at me like, I don't know what to tell you. See, here's the thing. I understand what it feels like to feel stuck. So I got a great job. I can't go to the next level because I don't have the right credentials. I also don't have the time per se because of the responsibility of the job. And I see exactly where I want to go. And the person who will support me in getting there ain't having it. Do you throw your hands up? What did I say earlier? When it comes to impossibility. Like if you believe something is possible, if you believe something is impossible, your brain stops looking for solutions. If you believe it's possible, your mind starts working towards it. I walked out and I was like, well, I'd be in trouble if promotions were up to her. Now, somebody would say, well, she's a vice president. What are you talking about? Promotions are up to her. Well, that's if you believe that. But see, I happen to read this book. And in this book, it tells me that the king's heart is in the Lord's hand. And so if the king's heart is in the Lord's hand or the queen's heart is in the Lord's hand, it ain't up to them. It's up to God. So I asked you already, and your heart wasn't there. So now I'm about to talk to God. I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to ask him what I'm supposed to do. I remember I went home and prayed. I said, well, now it's out of my hands. I did everything that I can do. What do you say I should do? Well, you need to start dressing like a director. You need to start looking like a director. You need to start handling the responsibilities of a director. You need to start. Most folk will come back the next day and take a step back in their responsibilities. I can't believe she ain't gonna promote me. I can't stay in this place. No, I went and prayed. The Creator was like, double down. More often than not, what we're supposed to do is counterintuitive to what we want to do. Double down. Then he brought the awareness to my mind of vision. In my doubling down, typically I was the last one there every night. Because I was the last one there, I would walk. This is all in the book. I was reading it because, we're going through the edits. And I would walk to the door. Sometimes we forget things, you know what I mean? Like, this is my life. I'm so happy I wrote it down. I would walk to the door, and I would stand in my director's door, the frosting on the glass with her name. And at this point, it's a guy now because they didn't brought somebody else in. I gotta train. And I would close my eyes, and I would see his name disappear and my name appear. And I would see myself sitting in the seat. Okay. And then I would leave. Every day, I would see it. Every day, I would see the possibility. Every day. And my reticular activating system was like, okay, he believes it's possible. So now we have to look for solutions that actually makes it possible. And then, of course, I'm praying. And my prayers are actually beginning to melt the heart of my VP. I go back in. I have another conversation. I say, hey, I know you said I need to get a degree in order to have this job. You see how busy things have been. You see my performance. You see how I've been showing up. And at this rate, with the expertise I have and the way that I show up, I'd hate to take this to another company. I enjoy it here. I enjoy working for you. I imagine that based on the responsibilities and the way I show up, you enjoy having me. And I would hate to have to take my talents to another organization because you won't promote me to the type of job that I'm already playing. 8 months later, I was a director. It was not supposed to be possible. A few years later, I was a senior director. A few years later, I was a vice president and officer of a Fortune 500 company. None of that's supposed to be possible. Not with my credentials. But this is the power of possibility when you believe. See, here's the thing. Like, if you don't believe the Creator will move on your behalf, he won't. It comes back to planting seeds. When you plant a seed, you believe. You take the actions because you believe the possibility will grow. What do you believe? I asked a question at the masterclass. I'm going to ask it to you all now. What would be possible if you blew the roof off your limiting beliefs for 2025? Doesn't matter what's happening around you. Doesn't matter who's in office. Doesn't matter who gets confirmed or not. None of that matters. What do you believe? What do you believe? What do you believe is possible in 2025? There are so many innovations. There are so many things that have happened because men and women saw something that could be created that was not there. There'd be no Netflix if Reed Hastings didn't walk into a Blockbuster and have a negative experience. Possibility came into his mind. What if we didn't have to pay late fees? Now today, many of us are using his possibility on a daily basis. Richard Branson, flight gets canceled while he's in Europe. He's so upset about it, he starts an airline. An airline that now plays a role that no other airline plays. Most of us, if you're my age, you're a Gen Xer. If 30 years ago, I would have said, hey, if a strange car pulls up, will you get in the back of it and let it take you somewhere? You'd be like, no. Yet today, because someone had an idea, a strange car pulls up with a stranger driving and you get in the back of it. Because somebody said, oh, there's a possibility here. Years ago, if I said, hey, if you go out of town, would you just stay at somebody's house if they let you, or would you go to a hotel? You would have said, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I would stay nowhere but a hotel. Now today, you get online, you look at the hotel prices, you go, where is there a house I could stay at? Why? Because somebody saw that possibility. Somebody saw that possibility. And then they nursed it. They didn't say, man, nobody would ever let you use their house. And I'm sure somebody told them that. Nobody would let you do that. No, I think it's possible. I think we could play this one. Now, you could fly into a new town and rent someone's car. I'm sure when he was creating that, nobody would ever let somebody rent their personal car, bro. That's the dumbest idea. He still saw it as possible. Now today, people will move around using Turo. All of these, when they began, were impossible possibilities. Where do you sit with possibility? I want to give you the 4 steps to expanding possibility in your life. Number 1, always awareness. If you know me, always awareness. You have to get present to recognizing your limiting beliefs. Where do you stop mentally? And the reason this is important is because if you don't understand where you stop mentally, then you also don't understand what's getting in the way of your possibility. Where do you stop mentally? Where do you stop? What are your limiting beliefs? What are the things, like even for me now as we go into 2025, and I'm grateful for what the Creator has done for me, what He's done for my family. And now I'm like, man, where do I stop? Where do I stop in the possibilities of my son's life? Who could he be? If I don't like the way the country is going, like, could he be president? Is that a possibility that I'm nursing when I'm working with him, when I'm teaching him? Do I see him that way? My daughter, what about her? Maybe she's the first female African-American president. Am I nursing her that way? Am I thinking about her that way? Am I dropping those seeds of possibility? Who could my wife be? Not just for me, but for us, but for the world. Am I nursing her possibilities? Am I nursing my possibilities? What are my limiting beliefs? Where am I limiting myself? Where am I limiting my family? That's number 1, bringing awareness. Awareness to wherever you may be limiting yourself. Number 2, begin to strengthen your imagination. Begin to strengthen your imaginations. Are you asking yourself the right questions? We like what if questions when they go downhill. But what about what if questions that take you uphill? What if I double down in 2025? What if I actually achieve my goals in 2025? Like when I think about Slay Your Goals members and the cost of the membership and all, like, what if I attended every session in 2025? Like, what would shift for me if I were fully present? If I gave myself that gift, what would happen? Like, what would happen in my life if on Sundays I took notes and I was just present? If I treated every Sunday, the 2 hours there as a master class, what would happen in my life? What if? What if? What if? That's number 2. These are the 4 steps to expanding possibility. Number 3. What are the small action steps that you need to take to begin nursing that possibility? What is the equivalent of you watering the seed? You're going to put the seed in the ground. And by the way, if you didn't set goals for 2025, it's not too late. We're in the 2nd month, 2nd day. It's not too late. As a matter of fact, I don't believe goals should really be set until March or April on a personal level. So what if right now it's just time for you to find yourself? Time for you to stay tuned in, continue listening, to show up to your Slay Your Goals sessions, or even just become a member. Like, what's possible then? What's the small action step that you need to take that will begin germinating that possibility? Even if you're uncertain about it, I'm just going to show up. You know, I really want to take get my health in order. I don't know how to work out. I don't know what to do. But maybe if I just go get a guest pass today and just walk the track. Like that one possibility. Oh, okay, that was something. Do it tomorrow. One possibility. How might 2025 go for you? What might be different by the end of the year? 340 odd days from now. 330 something days. 330 some days from now. Like, how might it be? Like, what if we took the what if in a different direction and you just started taking action on those what ifs? Here's number 4. This is a big one. Resilience. Whenever new possibility shows up, so does resistance. There will be something, a force, an invisible force that is there only to refine you, only to make you the person you intend to be, only to serve you in becoming your possibility. But it will be an invisible force there. Will you let it stop you, or will you continue to push so it can refine you? Resilience. You will fail. That's not an inspirational thing to say, Linnell. No, it is. Because you get to learn from those failures. You will fail. You're human. You will fail. Stop making failure mean that you're going in the wrong direction, but rather an opportunity to stop, listen, and learn. How do I need to do it the next time? Resilience. Embracing failure as a lesson. Embracing failure as feedback. Not embracing it to mean something about you. What I'm afraid is all too often we use failure as an indicator about us. Nah, she's just supposed to learn. You're just supposed to learn. Now you're wiser. Now you're better. Now it's time to go. Now it's definitely, you paid the price. Go. Awareness, imagination, action, resilience. I'm going to end with this. I got 3 minutes. Here's how you train your mind to see possibility. First, you got to slow down and get silent. Like, slow down. Number 2, imagine your future without limits. Like, spend time imagining your future without limits. Take the cap off. Imagine a future without limits. See yourself there. And then begin identifying the things that you expect. I expect that. I expect that. I expect a loving partner. I expect a healthy body. I expect financial independence. I expect those things. And then make them your goals. Make those your goals. And you already know, if you don't know how to handle a goal, you already know who to call. You can call me every Sunday, 773-591-1690, and I would help you. Possibility is what fuels business. Possibility is what fuels relationships. Possibility is what fuels personal growth. What could you change in your life this year if you believed that anything is possible? Like, for your life, anything is possible. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WBON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Liddell Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.